Have you ever wondered what remains after a legend leaves the field? When the stands that once roared their name gradually fall silent, and the stadium lights no longer illuminate their lives? Juan Román Riquelme was once the soul of Argentine football, a player who didn't need speed, but was always seconds ahead of the game, a man who made millions erupt with just a single touch of the ball. But today, at age 46, he doesn't live in luxury villas, has no yachts, no entourage. He remains where he started, with a modest house, a family, and a life that no trophy can fully explain. So what makes one of the greatest minds in world football choose to live so quietly? And is there a story behind that silence that we never truly understood? To understand Riquelme today, one must return to where it all began, a simple neighborhood in Don Torquato, where the roads weren't fully paved and children played football until dark. He was born on June 24, 1978, into a working-class family. His father was a municipal worker, and his mother was a woman who quietly maintained the home with little but an abundance of values. The small house with 5 brothers lacked luxury but contained the most important thing, the foundation of character, even from a very young age. Riquelme was different, not because of superior physicality, but because of how he saw the game. While other children chased the ball, he stood back, observed, waited, and thought. That slowness wasn't a weakness. It was a rare talent. In a sport full of speed, he chose to master time. On small dirt pitches, he learned what no academy could teach. Football isn't in the feet, it's in the head. Every touch had meaning. Every pass was pre-calculated. By age 14, his talent could no longer be ignored. Boca Juniors recognized this and brought him into their youth system, away from his family early on, living in a disciplined environment. Riquelme didn't complain or make demands. He just practiced, observed, and waited for his chance, just as he had lived since childhood. It was a childhood without excess that didn't create lack, but rather character. And that character, many years later, remains intact in the way he chooses to live, without noise, without ostentation, and without the need to prove anything to the world. In 1996, Juan Román Riquelme officially debuted in the Boca Juniors jersey at just 17, stepping onto a stage where not everyone has the mettle to survive, let alone shine. His first minutes weren't noisy or explosive. They were slow, like the man himself, as if he were listening to the rhythm of the match before deciding to intervene. But then, in just a moment, with a touch subtle enough, the entire La Bombonera understood they were witnessing something special. At that time, his salary fluctuated between $800 and $1,200 per month, a modest figure even by Argentine football standards. But for Riquelme, money was never the reason to step onto the field. What he pursued was the feeling of playing for Boca, where he always believed he belonged. In just a few short years, from 1998 to 2000, Boca Juniors won consecutive domestic titles, and Riquelme became the brain of the team, the one who controlled the tempo, deciding when to accelerate and when to hold the ball. His salary rose to about $2,500 a month. But what couldn't be measured in money was the bond between him and the fans. When Riquelme had the ball, the entire stadium held its breath. When he created a chance, tens of thousands erupted together. And when he made a mistake, the silence became synchronized. It was no longer a relationship between a player and an audience, but an almost instinctive bond where he became the center of all emotion. And it was there, amidst the non-stop chanting, that Riquelme wasn't just a player. He became the soul of Boca Juniors, the man who owned the stadium simply by how he touched the ball. Do you want me to write part 4, Peak and Europe? In 2000, when Boca Juniors touched the Copa Libertadores trophy, it wasn't just a title. It was a declaration that Riquelme had reached the pinnacle of South American football, where he didn't just play but controlled everything happening on the pitch. That victory opened the doors to Europe. And in 2002, Barcelona paid approximately $11 million to bring him to Spain. One of the biggest deals was at the time. At age 23, he entered a completely different environment where speed, physical strength, and media pressure far exceeded anything he had experienced. But the problem wasn't talent, it was incompatibility. Coach Frank Rijkaard didn't truly understand Riquelme's way of playing. He thought Riquelme was too slow, too dependent on the ball, while failing to realize that slowness was intelligence, the ability to control rhythm that very few players in the world possessed. Despite receiving a salary of about $3.5 million per year, the highest of his career at that point, Riquelme didn't have what he needed most: time on the pitch. His frustration wasn't expressed through words or arguments. He remained silent and waited, just as he had lived since childhood. When loaned to Villarreal, everything changed. There was no pressure to become a cookie-cutter star, and Riquelme could be himself again. He became the center of the team, leading Villarreal to the Champions League semifinals in 2006, just a fragile moment away from the final. That same year, he was considered one of the top 3 players in the world, with total earnings from salary and endorsements exceeding $6 million per year, including a contract with Nike. But even though he reached the peak in Europe, he never truly belonged there. When Barcelona didn't keep him, there was no anger, no reproach. Riquelme simply returned home, as if everything had been destined from the start. When Riquelme returned to Boca Juniors in 2007, it wasn't merely the return of a star, but the moment an icon found his rightful place. La Bombonera exploded with joy, as if his time in Europe were just a brief intermission in a story that had never truly ended. Back in the blue and gold jersey, Riquelme was no longer the young man trying to prove himself, but a player who had reached his maturity, where every touch of the ball didn't just show talent, but also experience, composure, and a near-perfect ability to read the game. Over the next 6 years, he experienced one of the most fulfilling periods of his career. He didn't need to run much, didn't need to create flashy plays, yet he could still control the entire tempo of the match with a cool head and rarely seen precision in his feet. His salary during this period ranged from about $800,000 to $1.2 million per year, making him one of the highest-paid players in Argentine football at the time. With Boca, he won many more major and minor titles, including 3 domestic championships, and was honored several times as the best player in Argentine football. More importantly than anything, every time he stepped onto the field in the Copa Libertadores, Riquelme reminded people why he was a different kind of player, not because he was louder, stronger, or faster, but because he always played his own football, the kind that fans didn't just watch, but had to feel. And it was also during this time that his image at Boca was no longer just that of a star, but had become the embodiment of the club's identity. In the Argentine national team jersey, Riquelme's story was not smooth, but it carried its own unique tragic beauty. He won the gold medal at the 2004 Athens Olympics as the soul of the collective, the one who dictated the play and made the most obvious difference on the journey to the top. At the 2006 World Cup, Argentina reached the quarter-finals, and Riquelme remained a crucial tactical anchor, the one who kept the rhythm, connected the team, and gave them composure in the most tense moments. However, his relationship with national team coaches always had gaps that were hard to fill. Some believed absolutely in his talent, while others chose a different path. And every time that happened, Riquelme didn't react with noise or attacks. He stepped back, remained silent, and accepted it in his own unique way. In 2008, ahead of the World Cup in South Africa, he decided to retire from the national team in one of the most controversial decisions of his career. Many didn't understand. Many were regretful. But Riquelme didn't try to give long explanations. He simply closed a chapter when he felt the time had come, just as he had always made the big choices in his life. In 2014, Juan Román Riquelme officially closed his professional playing career at age 36. There was no grand farewell, no tribute tour across multiple stadiums, nor any staged celebrations to prolong the limelight of a legend. There was only a quiet press conference, a few brief words, and the end of nearly 2 decades of football in true keeping with his character: calm, private, and unostentatious. After retiring, his accumulated net worth was estimated at between $35 and $45 million, a large figure, but not overly flashy compared to his stature and class in world football. Most of that money came from salaries, title bonuses, advertising contracts, and image rights throughout his career. For many years, Nike was his biggest sponsor, providing $1.5 to $2 million per year at his peak. But the most significant point isn't the money he earned, but how he preserved it. Riquelme didn't dive into noisy business ventures, didn't build a commercial empire, didn't open restaurant chains, didn't develop a personal brand, and didn't chase risky investments. He chose to buy real estate in Argentina cautiously, living off what he had accumulated and maintaining the same simple lifestyle he always had. After leaving the pitch, he almost disappeared from the familiar noise of the media, appearing very little in public and choosing a quiet life, true to his nature. In the early years after retirement, Riquelme almost vanished from the media spotlight. He didn't appear frequently on television, didn't become a commentator, and didn't leverage his fame to build a personal image like many other former players. He only occasionally appeared in events related to Boca Juniors or a few rare interviews. For the rest of the time, he chose to live truly, living as an ordinary person. Many wondered then what he was doing, whether a player who was once at the top of the world could adapt to such silence. But for Riquelme, the answer was always very simple. He didn't need to look for anything new, because he had never lost himself. In 2019, he unexpectedly returned, but not as a player, but as a figure in Boca Juniors' leadership when he ran for vice president. Winning that election took him from an icon on the pitch to the man with the deciding voice in the boardroom. And in December 2023, he took another step forward by becoming the president of Boca Juniors, with overwhelming support from the fans. What's special is that even while holding such a powerful role, he hasn't changed his way of life. He hasn't become a flashy businessman, hasn't appeared with a distant image, but maintains his familiar simplicity, making decisions based on a deep understanding of the club, the fans, and the very values he has always pursued. Riquelme's life today is not like what people usually imagine for a football legend. No luxury villas, no security fences. He still lives in Quilmes, in a quiet neighborhood where everything moves as slowly as if fame had never touched it. His house is large enough for the family, but has no details intended to impress. Everything is simple, practical, and serves life, not for show. Behind the house is a large garden, where the most special feature is a small dirt football pitch, exactly like the one where he grew up. Sometimes, he still plays with his children, as if he had never left his childhood. Inside, the space is warm with family photos, with very few traces of an illustrious career, as if he doesn't need to remind anyone of what the whole world already knows. His day starts simply, reading the news, following football, handling work at Boca Juniors. then returning home to his family. His long-term partner and 3 children remain the center of his life, without noise, without change, without chasing anything. Riquelme just lives true to himself, as he has always been. There is something about Riquelme that not everyone realizes. He never tried to be anything other than himself. While many former players build an image, expand businesses, and turn their names into brands, he chose to stay silent, live slowly, and keep his distance from the spotlight. His generosity also doesn't reside in the media, but exists quietly. He supports his family, helps the community where he grew up, contributes to small clubs and schools without anyone needing to know. The numbers can be estimated, but what matters more is how he does it. Not for image, not for fame, but simply because he wants to. In a world where many people try to become grander after leaving the field, Riquelme proves that greatness doesn't lie in what you show externally, but in how you maintain who you are over time. He didn't change when he had money, didn't move away from his roots when he had fame, and didn't lose himself when everything around him changed. Riquelme's legacy lies not just in passes or titles, but in the way he lives, a person who always chose loyalty over convenience, simplicity over ostentation, and silence over the need for attention. Juan Román Riquelme's life is not a story of glamour after the stadium lights go down, but the journey of a man who always knew exactly who he was and never lost that. When many legends find ways to prolong their fame, he chose to return to the simplest things: family, the neighborhood, and a life that doesn't need to be proven. Perhaps what makes him special is not just how he played football, but how he walked away from it, calmly, quietly, but with immense character. And perhaps that very loyalty to himself is the greatest title he holds to this day. If you want to explore more stories behind the glory, the lives that the pitch cannot fully tell, please hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos.